We've got a lot of time on our hands to talk about potential head coaches for Arizona State football in 2023. But man, a big one just hit the market. And we got to talk about this guy on this edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast.
Are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Heyo, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I am your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils football. This podcast, as always, is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, if you want to check us out in a visual platform. Of course, wherever you do get those podcasts, though, make sure that you hit like and subscribe and turn on those notifications as well so you get an update every time we post new content, which is Monday through Friday. In order to stay in touch with all the content that we're putting out all the time, make sure that you're following me on Twitter. You can find me at RichieBrads36. You can find the podcast as well at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode of Locked On Sun Devils is sponsored by Simply Safe Home Security. With fast protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe 24/7 monitoring, agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/lockedoncollege to learn more. All right, guys. There's going to be a whole lot of conversations that are going to be thrown around for the next 6 months at least. Hopefully a little sooner than that, but it'll be a good search, hopefully, for Arizona State football to find its new head coach. If you've been sleeping under a rock and maybe you just haven't watched a single game this season, Arizona State did move on from Herm Edwards following a 1-2 start to the year, including a loss to Eastern Michigan at home, which was the ultimate turning point and led to the termination of Edwards as the team's head coach. Sean Aguano, the running backs coach for the team, was promoted to interim head coach. So far, Aguano is 0-2 on the year. However, we've seen quite a bit more effort from the players on the field with Aguano calling the shots compared to what we saw with Herm, which is giving us a little bit of hope that maybe Arizona State isn't ready to mail in the 2022 season and that they're looking to be a little more confident and a little more competitive than maybe we were anticipating, because at the time of Edwards firing, it was hard to find a win on the schedule. Now, I think they could eke out a couple more, maybe 3 more. You know, this doesn't feel like a 1-11 football team the way they're playing football right now. This feels like a 3-win, a 4-win, heck, maybe a 5-win team. This just, there's a different atmosphere. There's a different aura. There's a different feeling in this locker room now. These guys feel like they're being doubted, which they are, and the world has turned its back to them, which it has. And they're manifesting it into better play on the field. Again, it hasn't led to a win yet. They are 0-2 with Aguano, but they just went almost, like, not even almost. They really did go stride for stride with USC. I mean, to only lose to the number 6 team in the nation with arguably the best offense in the nation by 17 points, that's a win for me. That's a moral victory. In fact, you know, I'm not a big moral victory guy, but if you are, make sure you check out yesterday's episode of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, where I broke down the loss to USC, but gave a lot of credit and was more optimistic than I have been in a while. But that's enough backstory about Edwards and Aguano. We've talked about this head coaching search for a little while now. I've thrown out all sorts of names: Matt Rhule, Bill O'Brien, Kenny Dillingham, what's his name? The Iowa State guy, Matt Campbell. There's been all sorts of names that have been thrown out there, and dozens more. One of the names that nobody considered, and I mean nobody, was Paul Chryst. Paul Chryst, if you aren't aware, was the Wisconsin head coach from 2015 up until this past weekend. In his time in Madison, he managed to accumulate 67 wins to just 26 losses. He also went 43-18 in conference games in the Big Ten. And the Big Ten is arguably the best conference in football. That's Ohio State. That's Michigan. That's Michigan State. That's Iowa. That's Wisconsin. That's Penn State. There's a lot of really good teams in that conference. And he had well over a winning record there, well over 43-18. And take into account, 2 of those losses came this year. Wisconsin was 2-1 at one point. They did have that unfortunate loss to Wazoo, I believe it was. They lost to a Pac-12 team. I'm pretty sure it was Wazoo, but now I'm going to double check because I am doubting myself. No, yeah, I'm not crazy. That's what I thought. Yeah, they lost a game to Wazoo this year in Madison. They dropped their first 2 games of Big Ten competition, and Wisconsin decided it was time to go a different direction for whatever reason. Weird to me, considering how consistently good he's been for the program. He literally has never had a losing season up until this year where they fired him at 2-3. So I don't personally understand. I thought it really came out of the blue. This is also a guy who won his division in the Big Ten twice, or not twice, 3 times, finished in second place 3 times, and had 1 third place finish in a 7-game season during COVID-19 2020. Other than that, I mean, look at this: 10-3, 11-3, 13-1, 8-5, 10-4, 4-3, 9-4. He only had 1 season with less than 8 wins, and that's because they only played 7 games in 2020. Also, he is 6-1 in bowl games for Wisconsin, which includes a win in the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl. He did lose his Rose Bowl appearance, but he still won the Cotton and the Orange Bowl, which are very, very, very important bowl games. Also won the Holiday Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl, and then last year, the Las Vegas Bowl and the Duke's Mayo Bowl, for what it's worth. So, yeah, 6-1 is pretty darn good, and that 1 loss being in the Rose Bowl is that's a fine blemish. If you're going to have a blemish on your roster, yeah, a Rose Bowl is more than acceptable. If Arizona State's only bowl game loss since 2015 was a Rose Bowl, I would be pretty happy with that kind of success, which is one of the reasons why Paul Chryst is such an interesting name to hit the market. Wisconsin's moved on. Wisconsin's decided it's time for a change of scenery. It's time to move forward. It's just time for a new direction, a new voice in this locker room, if you will. So agree with it or disagree with it. I know that a lot of Wisconsin players definitely are caught off guard by it and aren't necessarily the happiest in the world. There was a few guys who took to Twitter, including running back Braylon Allen, who said, if you wanted Paul Chryst out, then you're not our teammate, kind of thing. So it was surprising. It truly was very, very surprising. That's pretty much what you need to know about Paul Chryst off the top of my head. He does have a lot of coaching experience, has been coaching all the way since 1989, and was a head coach from 2012 to 2014. His first 3 years were with Pittsburgh before going on to Wisconsin. Now, for what it's worth, actually, you know what? No, we're going to save that. And we're going to go ahead and take our first break. When we return, we're going to go ahead and go over what I was about to say, but most importantly, his fit that's going to be coming in with Arizona State. But first, I want to talk to you once again about our good friends over at Simply Safe. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simply Safe Home Security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. I know because I use Simply Safe in my own home. They protect you with cutting-edge service technology, powered by 24/7 professional monitoring, agents who will always have your back. Here's why I love it. Guys, I feel so completely safe in my house right now because of Simply Safe. I've tried other different security systems and security companies before, but Simply Safe makes me feel really safe in my own home with crystal clear HD live streams, of my security cameras and the wide variety of high-tech sensors that they have. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simply Safe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection. With advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Our monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break in is real so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedoncollege. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/lockedoncollege to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Back into our conversation now. This podcast is free and available on all platforms. Here's what I was going to bring up before I decided to withhold it for that first break. One of the things I've been saying needs to be important for this Arizona State Sun Devils football team in its pursuit for a new head coach. It has been a lot of defensive minds over the last several years, going back all the way to, man, I don't even know. I believe Dennis Erickson, would have been the last offensive-minded guy that the program had, and he left Arizona State in 2011. So, I mean, it's been 10 years, more than, by the time they make another hire, that you have had an offensive-minded guy. Todd Graham was a defensive-minded head coach. Herm Edwards was a defensive-minded head coach. What is Paul Chryst? Offense. Paul Chryst is an offensive-minded head coach. A lot of offensive coordinator experience. Even more importantly, a lot of quarterback coaching experience. He played quarterback during his time in college at Wisconsin. He's also been the quarterbacks coach for Wisconsin, Platteville. I know I butchered that. The Ottawa Rough Riders, Illinois State, Sacagawean Rough Riders, Oregon State again, because he left there briefly to be the San Diego Chargers and the Wisconsin Badgers tight end coach. Goes back to Wisconsin to be their co-offensive coordinator and tight end coach. Goes back to Washington, so he does that in 2005. 2006 to 2011, he's Wisconsin's full-time offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. Leaves to go to Pittsburgh to coach for 3 years, and then comes back to Wisconsin as the head coach. This is a very well-versed guy, and he has a lot of hands-on experience working with quarterbacks. And if there's one thing that Arizona State needs right now, it's someone to work with their quarterbacks. It's somebody to help get the team back on track. We have not had exceptional quarterback play since Jaden Daniels' freshman year in 2019. Before that, and I'm talking exceptional, okay? So this isn't a diss on Manny Wilkins. This isn't a diss on Mike Bercovici, but it probably would have been Taylor Kelly's 2012 season, something like that. It's been a long time since Arizona State has had exceptional quarterback play. Again, Manny Wilkins was rock solid. You know, Jaden Daniels was solid those couple years. Burko had a really solid 2015 season, but it's been a minute. And Emory Jones has definitely not looked like the solidified answer at that quarterbacking spot right now. I still have faith in Emory, man. I don't want to abandon my hope for him because admittedly, I did have pretty high hopes for him coming into this year. But I also understand that there's a lot of circumstances that are going against Emory, and especially the offense. So let's say that Emory's season continues to not go the way that he wanted it to go, and he ends up returning to Arizona State in 2023 for his final year of college football. If he does that, and an offensive mind is brought in, I feel confident that they can move forward. If Paul Chryst is brought in, I don't know, man. That's exciting. Here's the crazy thing. Wisconsin has won a lot of football games over the last few years with average quarterbacks. I mean, I feel like I can't even name a bunch of their quarterbacks off the top of my head. I'm going to do my best to try and pull it up here, but I mean, like Graham Mertz is one of the first guys who pops into my head. He's on the team this year. Jack Cohn was previously with the team. I think that the Green Bay Packers backup was gone for a little while by that point. I can't remember his name though. They truly have not had a lot of like groundbreaking quarterback play over the last however many years, and especially in the Paul Chryst era. Russell Wilson was gone by the time that Chryst had gotten there. So don't mention him. He wasn't there. I'm actually going through a list right now. Scott Tolzien was the guy I was thinking of, the Packers, but he was, yeah, like I said, he was well gone. Wilson was well gone. So by the time he became the head coach in 2015, they had Joel Slave, Alex Hornibrook. That was the big name I was trying to remember. Alex Hornibrook was one of the quarterbacks there. He had some pretty rock solid seasons. Jack Cohn, who I mentioned, was there, and now they have Graham Mertz. But I mean, that's about as average of quarterback play as you're going to get from your guys. So take it with a grain of salt, I guess, on what he can do with quarterbacks. But I don't know. Like, I look at Emory and I feel like he's at worst as good as everyone he's dealt with. At worst, he is as good as Alex Hornibrook was. And Alex Hornibrook had some pretty solid seasons. I feel like Emory could be better. And if Emory were to come back in 2023 and Paul Chryst were to be the head coach and have that ability to work with Emory Jones, that's exciting. Another really exciting aspect about potentially bringing in Paul Chryst to be your head coach with an offensive mind is something we're going to talk about in just a moment here on the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. We're going to take one more quick break, and when we return, we're going to pick it up with my final opinions on why Paul Chryst should be the head coach. First, I got to talk to you guys about a couple of our friends, starting with Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're absolutely depriving yourselves of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built's done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It will be the perfect treat, or you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. Like all Built bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. So good. What's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, ditch the fat, ditch the sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com right now and use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. I also want to talk to you, especially my Arizona listeners, about our friends over at My Solar Nerd. Folks, if you live in a sunny state like Arizona, it's very likely that you've had multiple people stop by and offer you, quote unquote, free solar. The truth is that many of these companies aren't local. And because of that, they're using misleading tactics and end up overcharging homeowners. If you've considered solar, like I have, but something felt off, then you're going to love My Solar Nerd. My Solar Nerd's mission is simple. help you get the best solar system to fit your needs. The guys at mysolarnerd.com are local and understand the nuances of going solar in Arizona. They've been doing this for a while and understand that an educated customer is a happy customer. Their no pressure approach will make sure all your questions get answered. They firmly believe that if you live in Arizona, switching to solar should mean saving money. Once you're ready, they'll put their industry knowledge to work for you by choosing the best equipment, warranties, and BBB accredited installer. They'll also help you figure out all the credits and incentives you may qualify for. And they'll make sure that your transition to solar is as smooth as possible by managing the entire project for you and keeping you updated along the way. Right now, our listeners are receiving a $50 Amazon gift card when they book a no commitment evaluation. This promotion is only for our listeners that are homeowners. Visit mysolarnerd.com and select Locked On their How Did You Hear About Us section. Make the switch to solar on your terms. Start your research by visiting mysolarnerd.com today and show Locked On some love by letting them know we sent you. Folks, going solar doesn't need to be complicated. mysolarnerd.com makes it easy. If you have somehow not subscribed to the Locked On Pac-12 podcast, go do that. What are you waiting for? Get all of your Pac-12 news in 30 minutes or less with number one friend of the podcast and host of Locked On Pac-12, Spencer McLaughlin. Also, I'm on there once a week. So check it out. You need more Richie Bradshaw in your life. You need more Spencer McLaughlin in your life. Go and make Locked On Pac-12 your second listen of the day right after the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. Closing thoughts here. The one really exciting thing. So I know I kind of made it seem kind of iffy on how you would feel about him coaching quarterbacks. He got a lot of quarterbacking experience. He hasn't necessarily had the best guys at his program. But I mean, in his defense, look at some of the other great programs in the country, how long it took them to get great quarterbacking recruits. Michigan still is getting by with good enough quarterback play. No one's doubting Jim Harbaugh. Alabama took forever to start getting good quarterbacks. They were winning national championships with Jake Coker and Greg McElroy and A.J. McCarron. Georgia is still not getting dominant quarterbacking recruits. They just won a championship with Stetson Bennett, who's very quality. And no offense to any of these guys, most of them are national champions. But the point is, just because Wisconsin didn't have that five-star quarterback recruit and probably won't get a five-star quarterback recruit at Arizona State either, short of them, having a national championship season, that's okay. Because Paul Chryst has proven that he can win with decent quarterbacks. Again, he didn't have a losing season until this year, and he got canned 5 games in. Other than that, minimum 8 wins every year except 2020, where he went 4-3 from a COVID-shortened year. The dude knows offense, okay? And he's also had some very good defenses during his time with the Badgers. They've put in some NFL players. They have this guy, TJ Edwards. Oh, yeah, there's another TJ. TJ, what is his name? Oh, Watt, TJ Watt. Yeah, so while he doesn't control the defense, he still is bringing in good defensive players as a recruiter, and he trusts the guys to coach those kind of players up. People want to come play for Coach Chryst. This is a good coach. This is a great coach. Here's probably the most attractive thing about him coming to Arizona State. When you think of Wisconsin, there are 2 things that come to mind: offensive line and running backs. Arizona State has one of those down, running backs. They got a lot of them. We have had very good running backs over the last 10 plus years. You've had Cameron Marshall. You've had Kalen Balazs. You've had Marion Grice. You've had DJ Foster, Eno Benjamin, Rashad White, Chip Trianum, Daniel Nagata, X Valaday, Demario Richard. You've had so many talented running backs, so many 1,000-yard rushers. Paul Chryst is no stranger 2,000-yard runners. In fact, he's put in quite a few really good running backs into the pros. He got out of, or he left Wisconsin before Chryst got there, this being Melvin Gordon. But there still has been so many good running backs that have gone through that program, including this guy named Jonathan Taylor, who I'm pretty sure you guys have all heard of. He just led the NFL in rushing yards a year ago. Jonathan Taylor's there. He's got Braylon Allen there currently, and he's looking to be an absolute superstar once he's draft eligible next year. They also had Corey Clement was a very, very solid running back there for them. They've just churned out running backs like it's nobody's business. And sure, they've had some good running backs before Chryst got there, but he has maximized some of these guys. Jonathan Taylor was averaging 2,000 rushing yards a year. His worst season was 2019, and he was in the high 1900s. Yes, Jonathan Taylor was an exceptional prospect. You can't tell me Chryst wasn't part of the reason he was so good. Now give Paul Chryst this backfield. Sure, Valladay's probably leaving. You know, the way he's playing this year, I don't see why he doesn't go to the draft. Unless Nagata transfers, he's back more than likely. Tevin White will be back. Deontay Elliott will be back. Charles Hall will be back. I'm sure you can recruit guys. I'm sure you can get transfers. These running backs will want to play for Coach Chryst, and he will be able to elevate their talent and get the absolute most out of them as well. He can turn them into NFL running backs, and Arizona State is already putting running backs into the NFL. We have two guys right now, Eno Benjamin and Rashad White, who are very integral pieces to their offense, respective offenses, I should say. Eno Benjamin is the number 2 back in Arizona, and the moment James Conner gets hurt, and this isn't me wishing injury on him, okay? I'm just saying the moment he gets hurt, it's Eno's backfield. Same for Rashad. The moment Leonard Fournette gets hurt, and again, I am not wishing injury here, but if it happens, Rashad White is the guy. Arizona State's putting in really good running backs lately. There's no reason they can't continue to do that with Paul Chryst at the helm. There's a lot of very intriguing value here with bringing in Paul Chryst. Where before Matt Rhule was at the top of my list, Paul Chryst is now my number 1 coach candidate. I am placing him on this pedestal so much higher than everybody else. So much higher. And you guys know how big I am on Matt Rhule. And I'm still huge on Matt Rhule. Don't get me wrong. I would do cartwheels if Arizona State made Matt Rhule their head coach. If they made Paul Chryst their head coach, I have no idea how I would respond. The good news is I have the Locked On Sun Devils podcast to be able to respond with you guys moving forward. But that is it for this edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. You know, you guys are the best. Remember, the podcast is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. If you want to check us out in a visual platform, wherever you do get your podcast, though, hit like and subscribe. Turn on those notifications and get an update every time we post new content, which is Monday through Friday. In order to stay in touch with that content, make sure you're following me on Twitter. You can find me at RichieBrads36. You can find the podcast as well at LO_Sun Devils. So until next time, guys, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.